a possible government shutdown, the Senate is set to vote on a budget deal today. It's expected to pass there, but then it goes to the House, where it could face some trouble from both sides of the political aisle. We're being told to expect a very late night. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Sandra Smith, host of Kennedy on Fox Business Kennedy, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. And in our center seat today from FBN, the co-host of After the Bell, David Asman. And you, as we say it, are outnumbered.
I don't mind at all. With this company, I don't mind at all.
All right.
Good to see you again.
So, I'm glad you're here. We got a lot going on this hour.
A lot of business stuff going on, yeah.
Let's do it. The Senate is voting this afternoon on a bipartisan deal. Then it goes to the House, as I mentioned. It's a deal that leaders from both sides of the political aisle have negotiated, but does not mean everybody is on board. Well, of course not. It's Congress. Yesterday, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi gave a record-breaking 8-hour-long speech on the House floor demanding commitment from Speaker Paul Ryan to address the expiring Dreamers program. She wants the same agreement that has been made in the Senate.
Why should we in the House be treated in such a humiliating way when the Republican Senate leader has given that opportunity in a bipartisan way to his membership? Without that commitment from Speaker Ryan, comparable to the commitment from Leader McConnell, this package does not have my support, nor does it have the support of a large number of members of our caucus.
And this just moments ago, you were probably watching it on Fox. Speaker Ryan responded saying he is committed to addressing the Dreamers, but he wants to get the budget done first.
I know that there is a real commitment to solving the DACA challenge in both political parties. That's a commitment that I share. To anyone who doubts my intention to solve this problem and bring up a DACA and immigration reform bill, do not. We will bring a solution to the floor, one that the president will sign. We must pass this budget agreement first, though, so that we can get on to that. So please know that we are committed to getting this done.
And there's this, some Democrats, including Senator John Tester from Montana, urging Speaker Pelosi to back off on her demands.
I think it's a good deal, and we don't want to let the perfect get in the road of the good.
But she's saying, no votes from my caucus until Ryan gives us the same commitment. How do Democrats get on the same page?
Chris, I think Ryan should give that commitment. I think it's a fair thing to do. This is a.
But if he doesn't, are you okay with the House holding up this bill in the name of Democrats?
I think this bill needs to move forward.
Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel is live for us from Capitol Hill. Mike?
Well, Harris, good afternoon. We expect things to heat up first in the Senate this afternoon. Today, the Senate Republican whip, the guy responsible for rounding up votes, addressed critics of this two-year budget deal.
Do they want to cut the military? Do they want to deny states like mine the disaster relief that had been promised? There have been a lot of people waiting a long time, not even back in their homes. And so I'm going to support the deal. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, but I think it's necessary.
Opponents of this two-year budget agreement, $165 billion more for the military, $131 billion more for domestic programs, a debt ceiling increase through March 2019, $90 billion in disaster relief funding for hurricane and wildfire victims, and keeping the government open through March 23rd. Some conservatives are worried about the surge in spending.
You know, to have this much of an increase in spending and almost nothing in the way of pay-fors, it's, for me, very problematic. I think, you know, obviously the military has issues that need to be dealt with, and I'm a strong supporter of our military. But we also need to offset spending that takes place.
This morning, top House Democrats talked about their vision for infrastructure, another upcoming issue. Then House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, who was a part of the budget negotiations, was asked about this agreement.
Many of our priorities are in the bill. I have an unease with it and hope that the Speaker will man up and decide that we in the House can also have what's Mitch McConnell guaranteed in the Senate, a vote on the floor. I'm pleased with the product. I'm not pleased with the process.
So you will vote for it?
No, I won't.
She should be pleased with the product. She was one of the negotiators. Bottom line, House Speaker Paul Ryan needs Democrat votes, so he tried to reassure Democrats he will get to that issue after they approve the budget. Harris?
Mike Emanuel, thank you very much. Can we just start with Nancy Pelosi for just a second? You know, this is tough for her anyway, Jessica, because she was the person who stood out there and took verbal abuse, if you will, from Democrats who are dreamers. They say they want the chance to vote and blah, 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 and all of that. And they felt like she wasn't hearing them on this issue. So it doesn't surprise me that she's fighting so hard.
Absolutely not. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is really stuck between a rock and a hard place here. No one wants a government shutdown. 80% of Americans want a solution for dreamers. Head of Republican Senate and Congress are both saying they want a solution. But Paul Ryan is saying, oh, we're maybe not going to do it at this point, but we'll make sure that it gets it done. And she has to go back and account to this group. I mean, this has riled up the entire Democratic Party on both sides. You saw John Tester there.
Is she in trouble?
Is she in, well, I feel like Nancy Pelosi is always in trouble. I think,
wow.
It's very difficult to please a caucus that is so split between a very progressive left, a centrist middle here, and on an issue as divisive as this in terms of shutting down the government, and not divisive. We're all agreed that we want a solution for dreamers. I think what she did yesterday was remarkable. I appreciated the bipartisan praise for what she had accomplished, and in those heels, nonetheless. She got a lot, and I thought Paul Ryan was especially gracious about it today and saying he couldn't have even done it. But it's going to be a difficult fight.
With high heels, with spike high heels.
I mean, I couldn't do anything in those heels.
I accomplished a whole lot in 5 inches, actually.
But you're not 78.
You know, David, though, this is a lot of money, though, that they're talking about in this bill.
I'm so glad
and
you
there
brought
are
that up.
conservatives who feel like it's too much, $300 billion.
There are people who look at the stock market and think it's too much. I mean, you look at the stock market tanking right now. I don't know if we could put up the most recent figure. It is tanking. When it's over 400 to the downside, I think it's tanking. And one of the reasons, if not the reason for today's problems with the market, it's just about 400 down now.
1.5%.
Is the fact they're worried about this budget deal. Look, when Democrats and Republicans, you focus on the negative, but there are a lot more positive people right now, at least in the Senate. It looks like this thing might pass. When Democrats and Republicans are happy about spending more of our money, I'm really worried. I'm really, really worried. And it bothers me when they're working together well. I'm kind of glad that there are some outliers like Pelosi and the Freedom Caucus and others who are objecting to this. What's going to happen, the reason the stock market's been freaking out over the past week, because inflation is going up and interest rates are going up. And that kills economic progress, or at least business expansion. This is only going to make things worse, because it's in order. There are going to be all these bonds out there. Last week, you and I were talking about how it's $1.1 trillion they're going to have to borrow. With this bill, they're going to have to borrow even more than that. That means in order to put those bonds out in the market, you're going to have to raise interest rates. That's going to raise inflation. That's going to make things on Wall Street worse.
And Kennedy, I see you nodding your head. I also know that you've got an ounce of "I told you so" in there too.
No, I mean, but this is why many of the Republican lawmakers are in Congress right now, because they rode the Tea Party wave, because people were sick of this sort of fiscal irresponsibility. There are ways where Democrats can and should work together on things like curtailing the surveillance state, which we've talked about a lot on the couch, and also immigration. But when it comes to spending money, that is the absolute worst place. You know, it's bad when they talk about trillion-dollar infrastructure plans, but when you're also talking about increasing discretionary spending, increasing military spending, no entitlement reform of any kind, and then you have a talk of inflation and the impossibility of servicing this much debt. That's what's freaking out the markets.
Paul Ryan is behind this. I mean, that's what Jim Jordan, the Freedom Caucus, was saying. They're not just saying they don't support it. They're not going to vote for it. Jim Jordan's calling this thing a monstrosity.
Correct.
And his words were, I can't believe Paul Ryan or Congress can even move forward with something like this.
Well, Paul Ryan, he fancies himself to be a policy wonk and a cost cutter, someone who really understands budgets and numbers from the inside out. But at this point, he only understands making them bigger. He doesn't want to make meaningful
changes. By the way,
changes.
you know what, I agree with everything you say, Kennedy, with one exception. I think it is possible to have entitlement reform. There's tremendous waste, but I think that the president can do this by himself the same way he did deregulation.
He said he wasn't going to
himself.
Entitlements. That's the problem,
It's
though.
different from change. Look, we have waste and fraud of $60 billion a year in Medicare, waste and fraud of maybe $120 billion in Medicaid.
That doesn't even approach what this lifts and caps.
That's right. But if you can actually cut down on fraud and waste, you can cut out $200 billion a year.
But you can't agree as to what that is. I mean, Democrats and Republicans have vastly different views as to what fraud and abuse is there.
I don't know. When you see doctors overcharging, that's pretty clear.
I think the question, though, about why Paul Ryan would support something like this that Sandra brought up is an important one, though. What is the end goal here? We know entitlements. He wants to do that, and we know he's likely going to leave, if not before, slightly after the midterms. So his out the door is, I got tax reform, I got entitlements. I mean, what's the end game here, and what does it do to the economy?
Oh, boy. Well, as I said, the economy itself is going strong right now, but there are headwinds, and that's what the market always is a little bit ahead of what the economy is doing. The market is seeing those headwinds, and the headwinds coming from inside the Beltway. A lot of it was just noise over the past few months. They don't really worry about some of the crazy stuff that the people inside the Beltway do, but this
those
budget changes
debt
things.
issues, I mean, those are real, and when those start to manifest, that's when the market's really going to get spooked.
You know, there was a sweeping wave. We have all bicameral and the White House leadership from the party that says it is the fiscal hawk. It does.
There's another thing, and I don't want to get too wonky here. I'm a business guy, and sometimes, so kick me if I get too wonky. But the fact is, the central banks around the world are starting to unload the bonds that they have.
$4.5 trillion.
Trillions and trillions. So that's coming onto the market just when all this new debt from the United States is coming on the market, and that means interest rates are going to go up, and inflation. You're going to spend more for what you buy. Very simple.
As I tell my kids, zip it. They don't listen either.
I know.
White House Staff Secretary Rob Porter is stepping down from his post after domestic abuse allegations against him were made public. How the White House is responding. And the clock ticking down on whether President Trump will block the release of that Democratic FISA memo. Will we get to see it without redactions? And the potential fallout if we don't. Next. Fox News alert now. We are awaiting the White House press briefing this afternoon where the controversy around the resignation of Staff Secretary Rob Porter will likely be a topic, potentially a focus, depending on what happens. Porter stepped down yesterday after allegations of domestic abuse from his two ex-wives. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts joins us live now. So, John, the senior aide is out over these allegations. You spoke to one of Porter's ex-wives who now is accusing him of this violence. What did she tell you?
I did. I got off the phone just a short time ago with Colby Holderness. She was Rob Porter's first wife, and we'll put the picture up on the screen. It was a picture of her with a black eye that really set in motion all of what happened here in the last 24 hours. Colby told me that she was on vacation in Florence, Italy with Rob Porter, that they had a fight in their hotel room and that Porter punched her in the eye. She was quite definitive and detailed in her recollection of the story when talking to me, though the White House, reading a statement from Porter yesterday, told quite a different story. Listen here.
These outrageous allegations are simply false. I took the photos given to the media nearly 15 years ago, and the reality behind them is nowhere close to what is being described. I've been transparent and truthful about these vile claims, but I will not further engage publicly with a coordinated smear campaign.
So I asked Colby Holderness about that. She told me that that Porter did indeed take the very first photograph of her, the one with a puffy eye that you saw a couple of seconds ago, but that she asked him to take that photograph so that she would have evidence if it ever happened again. The photos of her with the blackened and bruised eye, she took herself. And as to the story being a vile claim, she said she absolutely stands by her story. That's what happened. Now, she also told her story. Someone else knows about this. She told her story to the FBI on January the 25th, 2017, when she was interviewed by the FBI as part of Porter's security clearance process. She said she told them about several instances of physical, verbal, and emotional abuse she claims that she suffered at the hands of Porter. She also gave the pictures to the FBI, and the FBI, I'm told, also heard similar information from his second wife, Jenny Willoughby, though there was no evidence that he ever punched her or gave her a black eye, as he allegedly did to Colby Holderness. Now, Colby Holderness also tells Fox News that she shared her story with another woman on the day of January 24th, 2017. That woman is Samantha Dravis. She is an attorney with the EPA, and there's a photograph of her there, who was dating Porter at the time. In recent weeks, Porter broke up with Dravis and began dating White House Communications Director Hope Hicks. Well, their relationship was a known secret here at the White House. It became public only very recently, which is when all of the allegations about Porter began to swirl. Sources tell Fox News that a small group of individuals here at the White House knew about at least some of the allegations for a period of a number of months, not sure exactly how long at this point. Chief of Staff John Kelly was a fierce defender of Porter in a statement that was released earlier this week. It's a statement actually that Hope Hicks helped him craft. Kelly said, quote, "Rob Porter is a man of true integrity and honor, and I can't say enough good things about him. He is a friend, a confidant, and a trusted professional. I am proud to serve alongside of him." However, late yesterday, after these photos of Colby Holderness with a black eye surfaced, Kelly released a statement that was strikingly different in its tone, saying, quote, "I was shocked by the new allegations released today against Rob Porter. There is no place for domestic violence in our society. I stand by my previous comments of the Rob Porter that I have come to know since becoming Chief of Staff and believe every individual deserves the right to defend their reputation. I accepted his resignation earlier today and will ensure a swift and orderly transition." The White House has had a lot of meetings, Harris, about this today. The briefing has now been pushed back twice. We were expecting it to happen in the next hour, or in the 1 o'clock hour. Now it looks like it's not going to happen until 2:30 and could get pushed back beyond that. We still haven't heard Rob Porter's side of the story. I don't know if the White House is going to come out with that or not, but clearly, you know, they're kind of huddled in the bunker here, trying to figure a way out of this. Harris?
Well, of course, during the press briefing yesterday, Sarah Sanders read the statement from Rob Porter live on air, and that was during the 1 o'clock hour. So we do know that he has called these claims outrageous. Real quickly, there was reporting today that some of the White House staff, and there's no gender attributed to that, so we don't know if it's women or men on the staff, and that would potentially make a difference, I suppose, in terms of the tone and tenor. But that there is some pressure now on Chief of Staff John Kelly to come forth with what they knew and when they knew it inside the White House. You know, we're having this 37,000-foot conversation about the treatment of women in this country. So I just point to those reports to see if there's anything you've learned from the White House.
You know, not on that front just yet. You know, we're getting information from them on this today is very difficult. But it is, and again, to reiterate, interesting to point out that Colby Holderness told this story to the FBI on January the 25th, 2017. That's more than a year ago. And nothing surfaced out of the White House on this. Now, the FBI does these background checks of people for their security clearance. And I don't believe that they are inclined to share their findings of the information with the White House. They either recommend approval of the security clearance or not. Our understanding is that Porter had an interim security clearance but never got his permanent clearance. So it is unclear at this point when people here at the White House learned about this information, but it has been in the hands of law enforcement since January 25th of last year.
Yeah. Well, he does have his supporters. His former boss, Orrin Hatch, has come out and supported him today, saying that if any of this is true, he should get help so he can segue back into politics. Yeah. John Roberts, great to see you today. Thank you for breaking this breaking news down for us.
Meanwhile, the clock is ticking on whether or not the president will okay the release of that classified Democratic memo that allegedly counters GOP claims of Obama-era surveillance abuses by the FBI and Justice Department. John Kelly has given White House lawyers until the end of today to make recommendations on how to handle the document. Then Kelly will brief President Trump, who has until Saturday to decide whether he wants to block its release and whether any redactions will be made before it is made public. Here's Republican Congressman Peter King earlier today.
I've read the memo. I've read it several times, and I want it out there. And I want people to be able to compare the Republican memo and the Democratic memo. As I read it, I saw nothing in there that rebutted any of the main points that we made. In fact, any of the points that we made.
So he wants it all out there. And by the way, he also told me that if any redactions have to be made, he said the president shouldn't do them. He should give it back to the FBI, have the FBI make the redactions so that the president is not blamed for them.
And we've already seen Adam Schiff, of course, understandably putting stuff in that he thinks will be redacted just so he can eventually say when it's redacted that this is a cover-up. But we got a taste, I think, of what's in the Democratic memo, and I called around to a couple of people inside the Beltway who either have read or know people who have read the Democratic memo. They say that Jerry Nadler gave us a taste of what's in it. It's essentially standing by the Trump dossier, suggesting that nothing that the Republicans have said has discredited the Trump dossier. Well, we just learned from Fox News that, in fact, one of the contributors to the Trump dossier was Sid Blumenthal, the dirtiest of the dirty tricksters in the whole political community.
I didn't think that was confirmed.
I think that Fox News has pretty much done due diligence in suggesting that this may have happened, and nobody's denying it from the Democratic side.
Not sure about the confirmation of that.
I'm sure about our reporters in Washington for Fox News. I can tell you that.
Okay. Well, either way, we know that there are issues surrounding the use of the Steele dossier to get this FISA warrant. Adam Schiff is on record saying that they only use the portions of the dossier that relate to Carter Page to turn over to FISA court judges relating to that FISA warrant, which we know that Carter Page was under investigation since 2014 and also bragged to Time magazine that he was a Kremlin advisor in 2013. So this is a little bit of a salty character anyway. I'd love to get to the bottom of it. I want to see both memos, and we were discussing this morning on America's Newsroom, Sandra, that it might be great to hear from the FBI as well, because they had concerns about the release of any of this.
Can I ask Kennedy a question? How has this damaged the conversation that we need to be having about spying on Americans?
Well, you're seeing these great political distractions, and we're talking about subjective memos that are describing objective intelligence. Let's see the objective intelligence. Let's see what's in there. Let's really figure out what
easy to spy on Americans.
We have judges who are rubber stamping these applications. 99.9% of them in 2015 out of 1,500 applications, one was turned down. And there is no oversight. Once the judges put that stamp on it, after that,
we need to have a conversation.
The NSA, the FBI, the CIA can surveil whoever they want in any manner
at a high level. By the way, a big difference this time around, right, is that the Republicans are saying, Democrats' memo, get it out there. Let's see it. It wasn't that way with the Republican menu.
No, there were the initial concerns, obviously, about it. And I even said here on the couch last week, you know, once we saw it, because we were here when it broke on Friday, they were saying that there were national security issues, and that's why I couldn't come forward. But we didn't see that in the memo at all. There was nothing that looked like it should have been redacted. They were all names we knew: McCabe, Steele, Bruce,
we'll see what happens.
Proving the Republicans' point on
Congressman
on that
King
one.
was suggesting we could see it this weekend. So Saturday
I'm
is the day to watch. Start watching for it. All right, a new poll giving us insight on what Americans think about President Trump's handling of the economy, what they say, and the potential impact for Republicans come the midterm elections. Plus, former Vice President Joe Biden slamming President Trump, calling him a bully amid talk of a 2020 presidential run. But could Biden's fiery message backfire with blue-collar Democratic voters who crossed over to Trump in 2016? We will surely debate that.
Well, who in God's name would have thought we would be here at this moment with this president? You know, he's in the process of shredding some of our core values.
House Democrats heading into the second day of their annual policy retreat, which they chose to have in Washington rather than leaving because of all the voting that's going on. Government shutdown. Former Vice President Joe Biden blasted President Trump repeatedly during his keynote speech yesterday and made a bold prediction of what he sees coming in the midterm elections this fall. Biden is expected to hit the campaign trail for several Democrats. Here it is.
Look, I kind of view the Trump presidency as a tragedy in two acts. He pushes this closed and clannish nationalism and this ugly and phony populism. Since when do we give hate safe harbor in America? This president is doing great damage. I'm absolutely convinced we can and win back the House.
Wow, as I look at him, I think, do the Democrats not have any options right now? I mean, where are those bold, fresh faces? And I've heard you say it time and time again, Jessica. You have them, and you're frustrated.
I'm not frustrated by Joe Biden speaking at the retreat, and I think it's great to have him out there campaigning. President Obama will be out on the trail as well, and is going to be raising a lot of money, which is obviously valuable to us. There are fresh faces around. There's, the likes of Tim Ryan, who challenged Nancy Pelosi. You've had some people come in Virginia, for instance, who are going to be big leaders here. Maybe Connor Lamb picks up that seat in Pennsylvania. But when you see the board of all the hopefuls, that we're seeing Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders still on that list is a little disturbing to me. And there are some people on there who I think are exciting and fresh, like a Kamala Harris. I'm a big Sherrod Brown fan myself. I like to see that conversation happening. But it's certainly a worthy criticism.
Kamala Harris and Tim Ryan are so completely opposite, and it just shows like both parties right now. Yeah, but both parties are completely split. They're both having a very difficult time figuring out what it means. Because we've talked about it a bunch. Susan Collins and Mike Lee, not from the same
How are they in the
Republican,
same party?
Yeah, Senate caucus at all. But same with Tim Ryan. Like Tim Ryan and someone like Kamala Harris, she's a progressive. Yeah. And Tim Ryan is at least trying to find economic solutions, or at least tack on to the economic success that Republicans have been able to cobble together. But the rest of the people on that list are so far left, there's no way they win a national election.
Pare it down, you say progressive and trying to cobble together
Kennedy's
economic
being
solutions.
kind, by the way.
Just talk about what state they're from. Kamala Harris is California.
So what
Tim
was your
Ryan
answer
is
to, would you like to see Joe Biden run for president? Would that be a good thing for your party?
I'm a big Joe Biden fan.
You're at a loss for words.
No, I'm getting it out. Give me a sec.
Biden or anybody else in your party in terms of the messaging. I mean,
the Trump
attacks
stuff?
the attacks on the current
Can
president.
I give him one shout out?
Yeah, go for it.
Let me give Joe Biden a shout out from somebody who normally doesn't. At least he's not degrading people who voted for Donald Trump. In fact, that this old line that every because Trump hit a chord, and one chord that Joe Biden always hits, and I would agree with you on this, is patriotism. He hits that chord very solidly.
He's all hat and no cattle. Where's
would have won 2016 against Trump because he would have that kind of bellwether appeal there in the middle. And he's the one who first called out Hillary about the economic message.
He's the one who stepped aside for Hillary Clinton knowing that he could win.
Well, he was going through a very difficult time.
I understand the personal circumstances that went into his decision, but he's not out there boo-hooing. He's not out there complaining and raining negativity on every single public appearance that he makes like she is.
You know
and
what?
she's
Let me
going to run.
step in there for a
Elizabeth
second.
Warren's going to run. Bernie Sanders is going to run. It's going to be cocoon all over again.
We were sitting right here together. Well, different studio.
Joe Biden. And we wondered because it was the longest I'm not running speech. And so much fun on Outnumbered. It continues now. Speaking of the midterm elections, what was once a grim picture for Republicans may be looking up in a big way. New polling on the economy and how America